I'm Zeb Lowe here at the George Bush Library in Dallas, Texas, and today I'm speaking with Rachel Clark from the Broker Action Coalition. All right, Rachel, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
All right, so to start, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
My name is Rachel Clark. I'm the Executive Director of the Broker Action Coalition that leads advocacy efforts for the broker world.
Okay, and we're calling it BAC, right?
It's called the BAC.
Or the BAC?
The BAC is kind of what we reference it.
Okay.
And so makes it easier than trying to say the Broker Action Coalition
Yeah,
every
I was
time.
practicing some of my questions and it was a bit of a mouthful. So,
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell, I got a couple of questions all in a row that you can hopefully unpack at once. One, what is the BAC? How was it formed? And how long has it been around?
So the BAC is like the grassroots advocacy network for mortgage brokers and the wholesale industry in general, right? We're not just representing brokers. We're trying to kind of make the wholesale industry thrive. So that's what it is. It was formed in 2022. So it's only 3 years old. We're kind of new to the advocacy world, obviously, but it was formed because obviously there was a need for it. Brokers needed a voice. Brokers needed a seat at the table. Brokers needed this representation across legislative, regulatory, and industry issues to make sure the needs and wants of the broker channel were being heard.
How did you get there?
How did I get to this spot today?
Right.
Well, I started a few years ago. They started with AIM, a state captain program that was part of BAC as well. And I had been sitting around kind of going, okay, as a broker, I owned a mortgage company with a mortgage brokerage with my husband. I was like, I want to get involved. I want to help. Where do I fit in? You know, you always want to like spend your energy and time on something that you're passionate about. So when they started a state captain program, I was like, that's it. I love Texas. I've grown up in Texas. And as many Texans know, Texans love Texas. So I was like, I'm going to be a state captain for Texas. Was selected as one of the original 5 state captains. And then at that point, it kind of like, I just grew up the ladder, I guess. Went from state captain of Texas to a co-chair of the whole state captain program. And then from there went to a part-time role with the BAC doing some back-end stuff. And then in January of this year was promoted to executive director of the whole organization.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so the BAC had a hand in ending or in pushing of the Homebuyers Privacy Protection Act. And this is tied to ending abusive trigger lead practices.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So for the audience, can you kind of unpack how those abusive trigger lead practices, how they impact both the broker and the home buyer?
So the problem with trigger leads is there were a lot of bad actors when it came to them. And so for a broker, you work with your client day in and day out, could be for 6 months. You're in the community with them, and then you go to pull their credit, and these calls bombard them. Well, they immediately think, why did you sell my data? So that relationship you've taken the time to build with them has now immediately been tarnished, right? Because this client doesn't see past you, the broker they're talking to, that loan officer they're working with. They don't see past that to the credit bureaus, other things that happen behind the scenes. They just look at it like, why did you sell my data? And so for small broker shops, it can be detrimental because if you're trying to like fight this with every single client and explain, hey, I'm not the one that sold your data, like it consumes your time. And honestly, like it's an energy thing. Like trying to explain to somebody day in and day out, you were not the one who sold their data can be frustrating. And for these clients, these home buyers, you know, first-time home buyers, English is not their first language buyers, it's confusing. Elderly, it's confusing. Why is this person calling me, telling me they're working with you when they're not? Like, why is this other person calling you? I thought I was working with Rachel. Why is Joe calling me? It just really tarnishes the whole relationship, I think, when it comes to home buying. And so that was a big thing when the brokers, you know, when the BAC started, our thing said, if you're donating, we want to know what you care about. And it was overwhelming majority wanted trigger leads to stop. So that is why we put all of our time and energy into really focusing on this the first few years. And now we've accomplished our goal and moving on.
Right. So how much of a hand did which I think I know from our previous conversation, can you share with the audience, how much of a hand did BAC have in this act?
I say we played a large part. We did work on a coalition, though, with the MBA, like the ICBA, a lot of other bankers, as well as some community advocacy organizations. So I say we were the small dogs at the table, you know, obviously being new, having a smaller like team and things like that. But we had a large voice because we do have a lot of brokers around the country that do support our efforts. So we were able to bring a different dynamic to the situation, whereas like MBA is a great long-standing institution, but we were able to bring a consumer perspective. You know, our brokers are small business owners across the country. It's different. So that adds to the history of the MBA. Here we come in with our letter writing and just getting the word out. It really adds to the fight at that point coming together.
Right. So this was, I mean, classified, I would say, like as a grassroots movement, which are, to my understanding, notoriously difficult to sustain.
Yes.
Right. So what, you know, tactics or strategies did you use to sustain this push? What challenges did you have? You know, what did you learn from them? Can you walk us through some of that?
So some of the challenges we faced is, I'll be the first to admit it, I didn't listen in history class and like government class in high school. And so understanding the process it takes from a bill to become a law. You know, it sounds simple, but there's a lot of steps involved in it that unless you do it day in and day out, not everybody understands. So the Homebuyer Privacy Protection Act got introduced in last Congress. Well, Congress is every 2 years. The session ended, and so we kind of would be like, oh yeah, the bill died. Well, and then people are like, so we can't ban trigger leads? Well, no, it's a new session, so we have to get it reintroduced. And like, so this challenge of getting, especially brokers, to understand the fight was not done, that we actually were a lot further along than it seemed when we were like, oh, we have to wait for the bill to get introduced. People were like, man, we're starting all over, like, we've got to do this all over again and everything. And it was like, I mean, yes, technically, but since we passed the Senate unanimously the session before, we had over 100 co-sponsors total. It's like, we're not starting over. People know what the bill is. People want to support it. So it was a quick process this session with the bill getting introduced. I think it was like April 10th, roughly, and then being signed into law by September. That's actually a quick process for these type of bills. And so getting our brokers and our advocates to understand that when we say, oh, the bill died, it wasn't completely dead, it wasn't completely over. And like, we were just gonna keep using that momentum to move forward.
Did you find yourself having to play or fill the role kind of like as a cheerleader often to keep people's either enthusiasm or just push them through to the next, you know, milestone or the next small win?
Yes, there's a lot of like, I felt like things didn't change, right? So it was like, okay, the bill got introduced. Well, that was like 3 months. Oh, the bill's introduced, we're looking for co-sponsors. And you've got to keep people excited about it because LOs want kind of instant gratification. They want to know it's, you know, hey, it's closing in 10 days. They don't understand bills don't do that, right? So it was like, hey, month after month, we kind of had to keep saying like, hey, we're making good progress. We're increasing our co-sponsors. You know, these are the good things that are happening. So then once it passed the Senate unanimously again, well, that's a big win we could celebrate. And we always tried to like relate the process to the loan process because then people, you know, when you're talking to LOs, they understand it a little more. So it's like, okay, so we, you know, cleared underwriting now. And like, when it was past the House, it's like, okay, now we're at the CTC point or, you know, and so trying to relate it to kind of their everyday life so that they understood what this meant, that it's like, it's almost done, but it's not quite done, right? Until it gets signed by the president, really it's not done. And so you kind of have to make it exciting, which not everybody finds government exciting. And so just trying to like really push the positives of what was happening, even if we didn't see movement, but we were having great meetings or we were getting more co-sponsors. We really had to kind of like emphasize those wins on the regular basis because you don't get a lot of big wins as you go through the process.
All right, so if we're doing that, if you're drawing the parallel between the origination process and then this, process of passing the bill or getting it through, what would you say, if you're making that parallel, what would you say is getting underwriting conditions back?
I would say that would be kind of like when it passed the Senate, passed the House, there were differences. So they had to kind of come together to figure out the differences. To me, that was kind of like conditions, like, hey, like,
Sure.
these are your final conditions. Like, we just got to clear these little things up and then go for CTC, right?
Sure.
So then they kind of came to an agreement. We're going to go with this one and send it back to the underwriter, let's say.
Yeah.
And both chambers approved the House bill, which was a little thing I did not know is even if the bills are identical, they have to accept either the House bill or the Senate bill, because when it goes to the president, it goes as one. So you can't have House bill 1, 2, 3, 4 and Senate bill 1, 2, 3, 4 going. It has to be one or the other. So that was a little nuance I was not aware of. That it also makes sense as well because he's obviously not signing 2 bills; he's signing 1. So once they passed both chambers, that's when it was like, okay, we're clear to close.
Right.
And then it's like waiting on, the funder to draw docs and stuff like that is waiting on the president to sign. And so it was kind of like at that point of it's past both chambers, hey, we equate it to a CTC, you're basically done. But, sometimes they come back with a funding condition. Sometimes it's delayed. Sometimes there's these things. So making it make sense, to loan originators that things happen and it's okay. It's not like it's not like they're killing the bill.
Yeah.
We're just waiting on the process to happen.
Right. Okay, so this passed with bipartisan support, right? Which is exceedingly rare in our political environment today. So did you have any particular messages or messaging or strategies that you had anticipated using for this level of success?
Really, with the bipartisan support, it goes back to having the right message overall. When we would go talk to congressional representatives and say, the problem is the data is being sold without consumers' consent, it's really hard for somebody to go, yeah, but that's a good thing, especially in today's society with the technology we have. And, data safety is so important, right? And so we always talk about how, our efforts are great, the grassroots is great, but when you have the right message, it just goes that much further.
Right.
And so that's what we've been very cautious of looking at, what we're going to fight, what we're going to support. We've got to have the right message. And with trigger leads, we always felt like the message was obviously clear. People shouldn't be able to sell somebody else's data without their consent. Now, if somebody wants to consent to their data being sold, that's on them, but you weren't allowing them to give consent to have their data sold. They had to go through an opt-out process, which was clunky and didn't always work. So the message we had was obviously the right one to win over both sides of the aisle with this. And we had a lot of bipartisan support. So that's really helpful in this scenario.
And this wasn't just a policy support either, right? It was kind of uniting the industry, one common cause and one voice. And so with this victory, what does that tell you about the possibility of brokers coming together and being able to shape the industry on into the future, should they choose to?
I think this just goes to show that we're more powerful than we think, right? Most broker shops are smaller. I would say under 50 people, right? So most people think, well, I can't do much. I'm just a small shop. I only have 5 employees. No one's going to listen to me. But when we come together as brokers, especially when it's an issue that aligns with the whole mortgage industry, it really does go further. And the voice of the broker does make a difference. So it's helpful when we're going forward to compromise with others. Should we maybe want one way this way, but hey, really we need to meet in the middle because that's the best option for the industry. It really just goes to show that it can be done, that brokers can get what they want, maybe not 100% of what they want, but 75% of what they want when it comes to these issues if they bring their voice to the table and make it heard.
So what can brokers or small business owners that want to have an impact or want to change beyond their immediate business or their local community, what could they learn from you and from BAC?
I think the biggest thing is get involved. Get involved with your local community, whether it be your like city hall and your mayor, whether you go to your representatives' offices, and get involved with other organizations that are looking at the mortgage industry and the issues we're facing now, looking for the future, what's coming up. If you're sitting in that room when a problem comes up, then at least you can say, hey, this is what I think. But if you're never sitting in that room, you can't really tell them what you think. And sometimes that's just the biggest thing, is just showing up and getting involved. Some things can be as simple as joining a call to listen to what's going on. Some things are send a letter to your representatives. Many representatives will meet with constituents in their home offices to hear about the problems they're facing. And it could be mortgage problems. It could be business problems. Are you running into something with your tax office as a small business owner? Go to your representative and just talk to them about it. Not to say they're going to fix it, but at least like enough people saying the same things will make waves.
So for anybody that's wanting to or curious about how to get involved with BAC, how would they go about doing that?
I would say the first step is to visit our website. It's just simply brokeractioncoalition.com. And there's a whole series of how to get involved, from joining our Facebook group to writing letters, joining our monthly calls. That is a way to get involved without committing money. Now, I will say we love donations, so obviously we would love those, but it also takes people just showing up for us to make a difference.
I got you. I got one more question for you. What other policy issues do you have your sights set on now or planning on tackling in the near future?
So we have a bill we're really pushing for support on right now. It's called the Mortgage Insurance Freedom Act. It was introduced by Representative Meeks and Representative Sessions just about 3 weeks ago now. And essentially it would make FHA loans mirror conventional, and then the mortgage insurance would fall off at a 78% LTV. This is something we feel is a good steward of the community to support, and really pushing to help Americans in those FHA loans with maybe some low interest rates that really, it doesn't make sense for them to refi at this point, but they could drop that mortgage insurance and save a couple $100 a month. So that's something we're pushing right now policy-wise. We are looking at things with the CFPB and how is that going to affect the mortgage industry should the CFPB go away. Or if they revamp it, I guess you would say, what does that look like for mortgages going forward? And trying to decipher LO comp and how we want, given our dream, what would we do to change LO comp, right? We know we're not going to get everything, but at least we want to be prepared with what we do want should the conversation start happening.
Right. Well, I wish you much success. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.